Hello everyone, I'm Chandna Singh Nirwan and I welcome you all to the Stories of the Indian Diaspora series curated under TMYS Review June 2021. It is my immense honor and privilege to introduce and bring into conversation our distinguished delegate, Professor Bashabi Fraser, who's also a recipient of the Commander of the Order of the British Empire Award, New Year Honours 2021. Bashabi is an award-winning poet, children's writer, editor, translator, and academic. She is Professor Emerita of English and Creative Writing and Director, Scottish Centre of Studies at Edinburgh, Napier University, a Royal Literary Fund Fellow and an Honorary Fellow at the Centre for South Asian Studies at the University of Edinburgh. Bashabi is the chief editor of the academic and creative peer-reviewed international e-journal Gitanjali and Beyond. She has been declared Outstanding Woman of Scotland by Saltire Society in 2015. Her other awards include Kavi Salam from Poetry Paradigm and Voice of the Republic in India, the Word Masala Foundation Award for Excellence in Poetry, Special Felicitation as a Poet on International Women's Day by Public Relations Society of India, Rabindra Bharati Society Honour, Women Empowered Arts and Culture Award in 2010, and the AIO Prize for Literary Services in Scotland in 2009. She has received various Scottish Arts Council grants and a British Academy Research Grant for her book, Bengal Partition Stories, an enclosed chapter published in 2006, and her co-edited book, Rainbow World, Poems from Many Cultures, was the runner-up for Emma Best Book Award in 2003-04. Bashabi's work traverses continents in bridge-building literary projects. She has authored and co-edited 22 books, published several articles and chapters, both academic and creative, and as a poet has been widely anthologized. 3 of her books are in the press for publication in 2021. Bashabi is Honorary Vice President of the Association of Scottish Literary Studies and Executive Committee member of Scottish PEN, Poetry Association of Scotland, and Writers at Risk Committee, Scotland, a director on the board of the Patrick Geddes Trust, a trustee of the Kolkata Scottish Heritage Trust, ambassador of the Federation of Writers, Scotland. She is chief ideator of the Intercultural Poetry and Performance Library in Kolkata and is on the advisory board of the same, the VNA Museum in Dundee, and the Indian Association of Scottish Studies as well. Bashabi is on the editorial board of several international peer-reviewed journals and has been an adjudicator for several national and international creative writing competitions. She lives and writes in Edinburgh. Her research interests cover post-colonial literature and theory, Tagore studies, migration and diaspora, transnationalism and transculturalism in a postmodern world, personal narratives and oral history, literary theory, and creative practice. We welcome you, Bashabi.
Well, thank you, Chandana. I'm a bit overwhelmed. It was a generous introduction, but very embarrassing and long. But thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure, Bashabi, to have you. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to TMYS Review, to Chandana, to Dr. Shourabh Banerjee, to Coral for inviting me. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Joining us in this conversation is Dr. Shourabh Banerjee. He is an associate professor at a government-sponsored college affiliated to the University of Calcutta. He has almost 2 decades of teaching experience and a PhD on Australian literature. He's an education ambassador of the International Organization of Educators and Researchers in the Philippines and is also leading this project. I welcome you, sir.
Thank you, Chandana. Thanks for this kind introduction. And a very warm welcome to you, Bashabi, and huge congratulations on the CBE.
Thank you.
And we jump directly into the questions.
Yes.
Predictably, yes, my first question is related to the CBE. I have this notion that no matter how much we grow up, there is always a child inside us who wants to be appreciated and likes awards and rewards. In this connection to the CBE being awarded to you, You were, of course, informed about it much earlier than the official declaration. So I have two questions now. A, what was your reaction upon receiving this wonderful news? And B, how difficult was it to keep it to yourself till the official announcement?
Sure, that's both are very perceptive questions. Yes, I have a grandson who loves his sweeties. Those are his rewards. And for a writer and academic, awards are different. I got an email when I was in India. I had gone to bring my father back, and I received an email from the Honours Office in London telling me about it. I had no idea what a CBE was. I actually had to look it up on the internet. And my first reaction was, have they made a mistake? So I was really overwhelmed. And it was very difficult because I couldn't tell anyone. My father, my family, my husband who was here, my daughter who was still here in the UK. So I couldn't sleep, basically. I found it difficult I was very nervous, very anxious, and, and I think the anxiety was the secrecy of it, but also the fact that, of all people, I had received this award, and I was humbled, and I think I was in a daze for days. DAZE, DAYS. Okay, so I think that was it, and it was at the end of November. And I finally got another letter saying I could make it public after midnight, 30th December, when the awards would be announced. So I did tell my family, but not my friends. I think the nation came to know through the newspapers. Yes.
Yeah. Days for days is actually an absolute expression. Yes. Who wouldn't be dazed at this wonderful news? Yes. So I'll continue in the same vein, and then my next question would be: the citation of your CBE says, I quote, "Services to education, culture, and Scottish integration," unquote. Integration is a very important term. I say this because for the Asians and blacks, they were and also are always discriminated against in countries dominated by white people. And that is mostly because I feel that way, that they are othered due to a lack of understanding of their culture and heritage. So would you agree with this? And would you please tell us what were the things that you did to achieve this integration?
That's a very good question, Shurab.
Thank you.
I think when I came here as the wife of Neil Fraser, I'd been to Scotland before when I was doing part of my PhD, but when I came here, I realized that there was a lot of racism. I faced it in subtle ways, not always overt, and I know that many of my friends faced a lot of racism. That's when I realized that what people need to know is their own connections to India, because people had no idea how deeply indebted they were to India here in the UK. And they didn't know that almost every Scot, every Brit had some link to India. Through the colonial period and thereafter. So I think the shared history was something I wanted to share with the Scots and with Britain in general. I started with dance dramas and teaching dancing, Indian classical dance. I was never a professional, but it was kind of something I did alongside my academic and writing career. So I decided that this was the best way to take our culture to a wide audience. We had packed halls wherever we performed, and also the second generation learned to take some pride in their own culture by learning Indian classical dance, getting used to folk rhythms from India, and knowing how much they could be appreciated through the music and dance forms of India. So that was one thing I did. The other which I did was I introduced a lot of texts which were post-colonial texts by diasporic writers, by writers who were from India, but also Scottish writers who had links with India into my syllabus. And of course, I introduced Rabindranath Tagore, who is a great universal figure, a universal voice, but also a liberal humanist. So that was one way to show the greatness of having an Indian legacy and being linked to India. And the final thing that I did was, apart from having artists and speakers who came, whenever somebody wanted to come, I tried to help with setting up programs, gathering audiences. So Nandikar was here, for example, and then we had Manjusri Chaki's group here, who, after Manjusri Mashi had died, but they did a wonderful program. But I also established the Scottish Centre of Tagore Studies, and that really helped. We actually established a journal, a website. We had various events. We established a distinguished lecture series. We had exhibitions and film festivals, concerts that shared our culture with the rest of the world. And of course, my own writing. If you look at my books, they are mostly about Scotland and India.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. Yeah, you have answered it beautifully. It is actually portraying our culture to those people to show that we have a culture and we have shared things. That is how we become acceptable. That is how integration is done, not by domination or by force. Thank you. Chandana, take it over, please.
Yes, thank you, sir. Bashabi, your father was India's first Commonwealth scholar in the UK, and your mother was won a scholarship at the London School of Economics. So spending a part of your childhood in London must have made the place closer to your heart, considering that childhood memories are often the fondest of all. So one imagines that it is easier to know both the lifestyles. How did you strike a balance in your lifestyle choices, and how transcending both cultures made an impact on you and your writings?
Well, that's a many-layered question. A very good one, Chandana. Yes, my parents had come to the London School of Economics as researchers, and so I think I didn't have much of a choice there, because I came as a child with them. Even when I came back to Britain as a part of my PhD program, it wasn't my choice initially, because my supervisor said I had to go and do literary stylistics in order to, do justice to my thesis. And I chose Edinburgh because my parents' former friend, Julian Dakin, who had died, for whom I wrote poetry, and his widow was here. So I felt quite at home here. I think what has happened is, if you are a child somewhere, you unconsciously adopt that country, because that country becomes yours. So when I went back, London stayed with me, or England stayed with me, and we can stretch it and say Britain. It never left me. I think the fact that I, like some of you, did English literature as an honors subject for my MA, my PhD, also shows a kind of seamless transition from one country to another. So I carried England with me when I was in India. But India, I think, has never left me. India can't leave me. Wherever I go, India is with me. So I have these two countries, and I find that I have this dual existence. I know I call it living between my two worlds, but I think I'm not a person who lives in the interstices of existence. I think I live fully in both. So while I'm in one, I will explain or think of the other, and I will also defend the other. So in a way, I'm straddling both nations, and I hope that sort of answers your question, Chandana, the way I integrate my two countries within my work, within myself, within my consciousness.
Yes, indeed, Bashabi. My next question is about your collection of poems, Letters to My Mother and Other Mothers. So, because of your upbringing, you have had the experiences of living abroad and in India with your mother. And after her passing away, you wrote this collection of poems, which are seen as a dialogue continued between you and her. And naturally, mother-daughter relationship is an umbrella term for friends, shopping partners, confidants, debaters, critics, and many more. Also, a deep connection can be seen between your stay in Edinburgh and Calcutta in these letters. So, how has a sense of nostalgia been helpful to you in bringing out these letters?
Mm-hmm. Nostalgia, yes, and longing, I think, and a missing link, I would say. My mother no longer there. I could picture my mother here, and I realized she was quite a valiant woman to brave the London rain and cold, and she wore a sari most of the time. And it wasn't easy. In those days, there was no central heating, and my mother did a lot of the housework and completed her research. So I feel that when she went back to India, she carried on. She was quite a pioneer. She was the first woman lecturer, the first woman reader, the first woman professor in her university. So there we are. She continued the tradition of, could I also say, the East Bengali woman? Because after partition, a lot of women who were displaced by partition became the breadwinners of their families. My mother entered the marketplace like many women, and I think they created a space for women in the professional sphere, women in the public space, women competing with men for jobs and sustaining their families. That is what brings back the sense of nostalgia for what I lost when my mother left. She died too early. She was, as far as I was concerned, she was too young to die. She was 72. My father's 90. He says he's 92. We think he's 90. But, he's still with us, which is wonderful. But I think through my mother, I participated in life in a way that was, she was an aesthete. She was a great cook. She was a great gardener. She was an artist who painted. She was a beautiful singer. I missed all that. I missed my mother. And that culturally, academically, aesthetically rich growing up with my mother by my side is something that I look back on with nostalgia. But nevertheless, I do feel people who love you, people you love, don't leave you. And that is what happened. For a few years after my mother died, I could not write about her. And then I had this dream where she came to me in my dream. And I got up and I wrote this poem. It was a gift poem, a poem that just unfolded without me writing it. Someone else was writing it. And then it became easy. I wrote poem after poem to her. And I pictured her here because after I married Neil and came here, my parents came every year to stay with us. And when they retired, they came for 6 months at a time. So it was wonderful. But that is why I could picture her here and there. And she actually was the magic web that seamlessly wove my two worlds together in the past and in the present.
Thank you, Dee. You put it
Yeah,
in very
that
beautiful
was
words. Yeah.
it was lovely to hear you to remember your mother in that way. And I'm half guessing the answer to my next question from this. So Chandana, may I carry on?
Yes, yes, please, sir.
Bashabi, you are not only an acclaimed academic, but also a renowned poet, a trained dancer, Kathak, if I am not wrong, and an accomplished cook. So would you please tell us where you acquired these skills and how you have used them in Scotland to connect with the society? And also, how does it feel to have so many avatars fused into one?
I think that's a too generous a description. I mean, the words acclaimed and renowned are adjectives that are not really what I would describe myself as. But yes, I'm an academic. I enjoy writing poetry. Poetry is my first love. But I do acknowledge I'm a trained dancer. And I think I owe this to my mother. She always found a Guruji for me when we went back and wherever I was. And I continued to learn dancing. Cooking. Well, I think if you have a grandmother with out of this world skills, and then a mother who is a very sophisticated cook, and then if you have aunties who cook equally well, you develop a palate that then guides you. So I think that's what helped me with my cooking. When do I write poetry? How do I fit it in? Well, as an academic, I find the whole day has been, too short to do my academic work. So poetry is quite useful because you can squeeze it in. You can intersperse your what should be your sleeping hours with poetry. So I write most of my poetry in the middle of the night. Since I don't have enough hours in the day, I do a lot of my cooking before going to bed. And the dancing has been a chapter in my life, which actually I have closed now because I couldn't cope. I couldn't do so much, but I still love dancing. So I watch dancing. And my daughter carries on the dancing. I don't know if I've maintained a fine balance between all of them, but they have all enriched me and given me a kind of fulfillment, which makes life both exciting and worth living. You'll have to give me a moment. My battery is running low.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can carry on. I can speak now.
Okay. So should we move on to the next question, Bashabi?
Yes, please. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. My next question will be a bit long. Please bear with me. You have talked about India-UK relations, and you have talked about Tagore on this side. So one Scottish name that is very important in terms of India-UK relations is Patrick Geddes. In fact, the two stalwarts of India of his time, Tagore and Swami Vivekananda, both of them lived in and around Kolkata, but they seem to have met only once in 1899. But Patrick Geddes, he had met both of them multiple times, and he had even corresponded with Sister Nivedita, if I'm not wrong, in 1903, by the time Swamiji was dead, about setting up a Tata-sponsored university according to the dreams of Swamiji. And he also corresponded with Tagore about setting up of what is today known as Vishwabharati University at Shantiniketan. And he was also the biographer of Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, not too many people in India outside of academia know of Patrick Geddes. You have worked on him and his correspondences with Rabindranath Tagore. So I'd like to ask you, what is your take on this great man and how far his efforts have gone into building India-UK relations?
Well, Patrick Geddes, like Rabindranath, is one of my gurus. So thank you for that question. Patrick Geddes actually, on invitation, provided plans for between 50 to 80 cities of India. So that is his huge contribution to India. He was a conservation architect and town planner. So he didn't go and say that, just bulldoze this part of the city because it's deplorable. But he always found the positive side. He used very little money, and he did a little minor changes here and there. But whatever he did actually was with full respect for a country's tradition, its culture, and its own architecture and plans. And he saw it all as very much in the context rather than superimposing the Western mode of architecture and living onto the Indian scene. So in that sense, Patrick Geddes was a visionary, one who was deeply rooted in the local. He was the one who's saying we now all adopt, think local, act global. Sorry, yes, think local, act global. And that is it, the local and the global. We have this absurd term, locality, which I don't like, but local and global are what make Patrick Geddes and Rabindranath the visionaries, the relevant minds that we continue to need. Another thing about Patrick Geddes, you mentioned Sister Nivedita. I'm really glad you mentioned Vivekananda. Their lives overlapped, and Sister Nivedita also knew Rabindranath, as you know. What is pertinent to say is that Geddes also had the chair of civics and sociology in Bombay, and that was his first chair. And then he had a chair in botany in Dundee. So he sort of spent time in both places. He was 9 years in India, a very active 9 years. And yes, you're right, Shurab, when Rabindranath was thinking and working on Vishwabharati, an international university, he invited Patrick Geddes to provide the plans for Vishwabharati, which Tagore did. I think the other link between them was Arthur Geddes, Patrick Geddes' son, geographer's son, whom actually my parents met at the London School of Economics and knew. And Arthur spoke perfect Bengali, according to my parents. And I met Arthur's widow, Jani, when I came to Edinburgh. And then and Murdo MacDonald, who has written a very good article on the quartet, that's Patrick Geddes, Sister Nivedita, Rabindranath, or rather the triangular, and Jagadish Chandra Bose, a triangular and a quartet relationship. It was Murdo who told me about the letters between Geddes and Tagore that were at the National Library. But he said that the other side of the correspondence was not there. So that's when I went on a hunt, a treasure hunt, and I found it in Rabindra Bhavan. And that was it. I just couldn't get away from these two men. And I edited their letters. I co-edited with Amrit Chen and Tapati Mukherjee, The Confluence of Minds, which is the letters between, the articles of Tagore and Geddes on education and the environment. And actually my fourth a revised edition of A Meeting of Two Minds, the Geddes Tagore letters, are in press, and they will be out this summer. So as far as I can see, Geddes, like Rabindranath, was a polymath. He never thought of Indians as subservient or substandard. He was very fond of his Indian students. In fact, Anna Geddes, his wife, looked after them like a mother. And as you know, that Geddes was very close to Abula and Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose, and he held Jagadish Chandra Bose in with huge regard when a lot of Western scientists wanted to dismiss him because he wasn't white.
Yeah. And so your hunting for the letters and publishing them actually completed the bridge, which would otherwise have been, would have remained incomplete for maybe many more years to come, if at all they were discovered and published. Thanks for this wonderful answer. Yes, Didi, you were saying something.
Well, I'm just saying I would still like to say that I owe a lot to Murdo MacDonald, Professor Murdo MacDonald, but I also would like to mention another name, Professor Shopun Mujumdar, who has died, because Shopunda actually really encouraged me, opened doors for me, and he just gave me, he said, I will let you work on this on two conditions. One is Vishwabharati should publish the book. And secondly, the letters should not just include the letters between Geddes and Tagore, but other luminaries within the circle. Now, how could I say no to either of those very constructive instructions, So I had, the first edition was actually published by Edinburgh University, Edinburgh Reviews book series, and the second edition by Vishwabharati.
Okay. Thank you for your answer. Chandana?
Yes, thank you, sir. Bashabi, talking of cultures and integration, your poem From Ganga to the Tay is an epic that elaborates upon the rich cultural history of both India and Scotland. Why did you choose two prominent rivers as metaphors for transnationalism?
An excellent question. Well, rivers symbolize civilization, don't they? I mean, early civilizations, all civilizations grew up along rivers. Ports near the cities came much later, but rivers carried the whole idea of development, progress, humanity along their banks. We can't do without fresh water. They provide transport, they provide food, they provide sustenance. But the other reason was rivers don't necessarily stay confined within nations. I mean, the Ganga starts somewhere in the Himalayas, and it's debated how many sources she has, probably 3. And some of it then all gathers together, and some of it actually empties itself, the river waters, in another country now, which is Bangladesh. And so rivers are transnational. Now, rivers are the bodies from which trade began across the world. So even if you look at something like Thames, all the goods that came up the Thames and down the Thames and then reached the world or came from the world made the river a transnational conduit. The Tay was the same. The Tay is the longest river, like the Ganga in India. The Tay is the longest river in Scotland, and with its Dundee links, we can see that this was the port from which the jute went out and other goods came in. So rivers are transnational because they speak to the world, they link the world to their nations. So I think that's a transnationalism. But the other reason is while rivers stand for communication and connectivity, it's people who come to their banks. So we are here in Britain because the Scots, the Brits were there once. If they hadn't gone there, we wouldn't have come here. And we are here near the rivers. So the transnational rivers bring about transnational migration, whether it's of the colonizer from the colonizing country or the colonized coming back to the shores from which the colonizers began their journeys. So I think the rivers stand for life, for continuity, for connectivity, for communication, and are global in intent. And if they had their consciousness, they would say that too. And they stand for peace. Rivers are not there to destroy the world. Yes, they cause havoc, but a lot of the havoc could have been prevented by us. So I think that should answer your question.
Yes, yes, very interesting. Yes, and like you said, rivers stand for life. So talking about life, the title is about your first collection of poems, and it contains 59 poems, and many about India and some about Scotland. To quote unquote, what makes a city is not its architecture, but the life within the city. The book offers a trip through Edinburgh. There are memories of the festival, of the city's bars, of the changeable weather, the flowers, and the birds. Would you describe these kinds of poems that speak of the nitty-gritties of a city as travel writings as well?
Why not? Because I don't do travel writing as such, but my poems allow me to embody my travels in verse. So yes, and the here and the there, the departures and arrivals, the resonances, the changing seasons, one season that reminds me of another in another country, and of the differences. So, while it drizzles here continuously, it pours in India during the monsoons. So, yes, I will miss my mangoes. But when I go there, I might miss my strawberries. So there we are. Can't have both, but we can live with nostalgia. I think these are about journeys. Life itself is about a journey. The title poem, a lot of people have said that it's very like Qazi Nazrul Islam's Bidrohi, the revolutionary. It's interesting because I hadn't read Bidrohi before I wrote it. Maybe I had heard it, I don't know. But it was quite amazing how many Bengalis have told me that. And Bidrohi is about life itself. And life takes us on various journeys, doesn't it? Both physical and mental, but also emotional and metaphoric. So I think, yes, poetry and the poems in my first collection could be about the various journeys I've made.
All right. Thank you, Bashabi. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Bashabi, you have not only been a strong advocate of UK-India relations, but you have actually worked on it, as exemplified, amongst others, through your academic exchanges between Edinburgh, Napier University, Vishabharati University, and Calcutta University, which resulted in 2 books. But perhaps one of the other fruits of this desire to be connected to your homeland is the anthology on Bengal partition stories, an unclosed chapter, which comprises of real-life accounts of the people who witnessed the partition. The nation partition affects at 2 levels primarily. One, the feeling of being uprooted and dislocated, and the second is the straining of inter-religion dynamics. In this context, what, according to you, can be the factors that determine the concept of homeland? Is just being born in a place sufficient to call it homeland? Or is it the feeling of belonging and feeling welcomed in a country that creates the concept of a home? What would you say?
That's a very nuanced question. Home, home, home should come with a feeling of security, shouldn't it? Home should be something that should make you feel that there is a sense of permanence here. Home should also be ensconcing, embracing, and a place where you feel nurtured and valued. Home is it's not just about having a roof over your head, walls around you, and it's not a house, because I don't know how many times my houses have changed. Being born in a country, well, I'm a post-midnight child. I know I'm much older than you, but believe it or not, I'm not that old. So I was born in India. My parents and grandparents were born in what was East Bengal, the eastern part of Bengal. And in fact, most of my family, many of my friends' families come from there. They were born there, their parents and grandparents, and yet they had to leave. So what became home? The home was, in India, for them, it was a temporary affair. It was mostly rented, it was crowded existence, and it was a protracted post-partition struggle. But it's the country that gave them some sort of asylum, which I think is being questioned again now, which I find really disturbing and sad. When does a country become your own? When does it feel like home? I think a lot of it is when others accept you, when they don't, consider you the other, when they don't stop calling you abusive terms. I mean, we have embraced the term Bangal proudly, but when it was first used, it wasn't a compliment. To be called a Paki doesn't mean you're not, that you're a Pakistani. To be called a Paki is to be denigrated. Pakistani, for those who come from Pakistan, should be a compliment, should be a recognition of their heritage. So that when it's how others perceive you, how others welcome you, how others accept you are what make you feel at home. For me in Britain, I must say that I feel very grateful because I've been published here. I have had all my awards here, I say with some embarrassment. I've also received the highest national honor this year, which I'm very grateful, hugely grateful for. But also I have my personal chair, my academic position here, but also I've been made a Professor Emerita here. So all these welcoming, accepting gestures have in a big way made me feel welcome and at home. But I must say, whenever I go to India, in a most indescribable way, though I've been away for so many decades now, that I immediately blend in. I immediately feel at home. So I think I have two homes, but it's how people make you feel, how people perceive you, and how they welcome you and accept you is what makes you realize where you are most at home.
Yeah. So it's that you don't get to choose your home. Your home chooses you by assimilating you, and you can have multiple homes at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was a very well illustrated answer. I'm so happy with that answer because I've learned so many things from it. Yes, Chandana, please go on.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Bashabi, how has the literature of diaspora and by the diaspora helped in easing the pain of the colonial past and bridging the huge gap between two nations here, one being the colonizers and other being colonized?
Once again, that question is a complex one, because while I have read a lot of Indian diasporic writers, I have also read writers who are of the Scottish diaspora in Britain, in India. And in 2017, Alan Riek and I, we co-edited Thali Katori, which is an anthology of Scottish and South Asian poetry, of Scots who went to India and wrote about India, and of South Asians who came from the subcontinent here and wrote about Scotland. So here you have diaspora working both ways. It all depends on where you departed from and where you arrived. But it isn't always a neat divide between the colonizer and the colonized. So that's what we have found. A lot of Scots were very, very sad when they had to leave India. And many of them died there. And those who came back never really fitted in. I'll give you one example, and that is Sir Daniel Hamilton. He was the single most wealthy Scot in India at one point in time. He made so much money from the P&O's shipping company that he could have come back and become a Scottish nabob or nawab and lived a life of luxury. Instead, he asked the viceroy if he could buy 9,000 acres in the Sundarbans. And that's what he did. And then he gave away that land to the people. And he said they could come and settle there on a couple of conditions, that they would have to leave all their differences behind of religion, caste, language, creed, region behind. They would have to live as one community. And the other was that they would have to take as much land as they liked, but which they could maintain. And there we are. We have this man building cooperatives there. He's written a lot about that, mostly in letters and speeches and little essays. And there's a wonderful book called A Philosopher's Stone, brought out by two Bengalis, an anthropologist and a civil servant. So do look out for it, about Sir Daniel Hamilton. So I think here you have a diasporic Scot who actually was very, very close to Rabindranath and more or less embraced India as his home and tried to alleviate the poverty of a lot of people through his cooperatives, through microcredit, which is was the first man to establish. And Rabindranath actually was a friend of his who also had started the cooperative movement on his own. So I think diaspora is something that has helped me when I look at how people miss their countries, but also see humanity wherever they are, in the people they're surrounded by, as they see resonances of customs, of rituals, of habits, and of literature, which portrays humanity everywhere as being very, very similar. So I think that is what has sustained me, that I belong to a huge tribe of writers who have left one country, arrived at another, carrying that country with them, but seeing some sort of association that is very close to what they knew in their own country.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Bashabi. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, this will be my last question. My last question for the day, and again, it is a pretty obvious question. Since we are talking about India-UK relations, we cannot but talk of Brexit. So, how, in your view, has the Brexit affected the Indian diaspora in the UK, if it has? I'm pretty sure it has, but what is your take on that?
Well, I mean, I voted against Brexit, and if there is another vote, I'll vote against it again. So in Scotland, 60% of Scotland voted against Brexit. Having not directly witnessed partition, because I came after that, but having witnessed the pangs of partition amongst those who witnessed it, fragmentation of nations is something that I'm always wary about, worried about. Britain is a small island. We are already quite isolated, surrounded by the sea. We are an extension of Europe, and I don't see, the many benefits. I don't see the benefits of this separation. What will it do to Indians? Well, I mean, a lot of Indian businesses are tied to markets in Europe. A lot of academics would like to work with European funding and European institutions. That will be difficult. A lot of Indian artists, along with their British counterparts, kind of mainstream counterparts, let's say, have found name and fame and recognition through their European tours. They'll find that very difficult now. So I think Brexit is going to really affect us in many ways, but different ways. But it also means that we won't have Europeans coming to work here in the jobs that Brits never took up. It's no use saying they come and take our jobs, because they don't, because they don't want to do those jobs. Those who are here, others have to be brought in. Every country has benefited from migrant labor. So will they come from India? I don't think so. But even if they don't come from India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, we will be seen as the ones who take away jobs from the mainstream. And that won't have a good effect on us. It has been a largely isolationist vote, and the isolationist consciousness will always pick out those who are easy to spot as the other. And attacks have happened, and they will continue. We are safer in Scotland, and being middle class and, in kind of positions that are considered powerful, we might think we are safe, but we should never think that, because we should think of all our compatriots who need our help, who need our support. So we should reach out, and we should be aware of what we have brought on ourselves. And I think we'll be poorer for it for at least 5 decades to come.
Okay, so that is indeed a very bleak picture that you have painted. Chandana, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. This will be Bashabi, my last question. It's on your e-journal, Gitanjali and Beyond. It explores the connections Rabindranath Tagore established and the impact he had around the world. We see a similar trajectory in your writings, which brings people, cultures, communities, and nations together. Which aspect of Tagore's life and writing has impacted and influenced your writings?
Well, thank you. But first of all, I am nowhere near Tagore. There's no comparison. If he's reached the zenith, I still stand on this earth. So, we are miles apart, poles apart, but he is an inspiration. What has affected me? I think his intellectual integrity, his cultural abundance, and his liberal humanism. His whole idea of interdisciplinarity in education, his knowledge of the environment and its sustainability as paramount in our lives. His total rejection of divisions in community. He saw humanity as a whole. He didn't believe in the dominant or the subservient. He felt every region, every people had something to offer to the world. His deep respect for humanity is something that I think is what I find most inspiring and meaningful. And of course, his songs will stay with me. So when I'm really sad or happy, you used the word nostalgia earlier, nostalgic. If I need any song for any mood, any emotion, any occasion, I can go to Tagore. If I want a line that corroborates what I want, what I believe in, what I think, if I want to counter an argument that is divisive or narrow, I can find it in Tagore. So I think Tagore is kind of someone who one day we will realize that what he has written, what he has done in a lifetime is unimaginable. Even if we could do a fraction of what he did, we would be continuing his work.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bashabi. That was indeed a very beautiful answer. I think we'll have to wind up this conversation, though we do not want to. We can, I think, go on listening for hours. And this whole journey of you joining us as a delegate, and till now, it has been such a learning experience for all of us. Thank you so much, Bashabi.
Thank you, Chandana. Thank you, Shurab. And thank you, TMYS Review.
Thank you, Bashabi. It was an honor talking to you.